everything you know about being human is a lie told by gravity. From the day our world was one to the moment our DNA dissolves into digital dust, your existence is just a fleeting glitch in Earth's 100 million year reset. Are you ready to see what remains when you're gone? While we have spent ages gazing at the distant cold stars and wondering how high we might leap on their alien surfaces, our true origin story begins much closer to home, anchored in the very soil beneath our feet. To understand where we are going, we must first confront the restless giant we inhabit, a planet that has never, for a single moment in billions of years, remained still. Imagine a world that is whole, where every coast fits into another like a lover's embrace. This was Earth 335 million years ago, dominated by the supercontinent Pangea. There was no east or west, only a vast, unbroken expanse of rock and life. But beneath that deceptive stability, the invisible hands of convection and gravity were already at work, tearing the world apart to create the continents we now call home. As we stand here today, we often fall into the trap of thinking our maps are permanent, that the borders we draw in the dirt or on paper define the shape of reality. They don't. We are living in a mere snapshot of a much longer, much more violent cinematic history. As we peer into the next century, the rhythm of this change shifts from the slow grind of tectonic plates to the frantic heartbeat of human impact. The tragedy of the 21st century isn't just that the world is changing, it's the speed at which we are forcing its hand. By the year 2126, the continued saturation of our atmosphere with carbon will have rewritten the global coastline. I often think about the Bahamas, not as a destination on a brochure, but as a culture, a history, and a sanctuary. Within the next 100 years, that sanctuary will likely be silent, reclaimed by a 1.2-meter rise in sea level. It is a sobering thought to realize that the places where we now make memories may soon become underwater graveyards, monuments to a climate we couldn't quite master. By the time we reach 2 centuries from now, the sheer scale of human presence will have reached a fever pitch. Picture a world teeming with 19 billion souls. We will have cracked the code of biology, pushing the human lifespan to 180 years through sheer medical will. But I find myself wondering, what does a life of nearly 2 centuries feel like when the world is so crowded? When the fossil fuels, the very lifeblood that built our modern empires, have been sucked dry from the Earth's crust? The oil and gas that once fueled our ambitions will be nothing more than a ghost story told to children. We will be a species forced into a radical, uncomfortable maturity, living longer than ever before, but on a planet that feels smaller by the day. Even as we struggle with the logistics of billions of people, the Earth continues its slow, indifferent march. In those 2 centuries, the continents will have drifted another 5 meters. It sounds like a negligible distance, the length of a standard car, but on a planetary scale, it represents millions of tons of rock shifting in a dance that predates us and will outlast us. While we are busy trying to sustain 19 billion lives, our silent mechanical Voyager, Voyager 1, will finally reach the inner shell of the Oort cloud. It is a haunting irony. As we become more tightly packed together on this warming rock, our furthest ambassador is entering a region of absolute, crushing loneliness at the very edge of the sun's influence. This first chapter of our future is not just about rising tides or dwindling resources. It is about the end of our adolescence as a species. We are beginning to realize that we are not the masters of the Earth, but its temporary tenants. The comfort of the now is fading, replaced by a reality where the ground is moving, the oceans are rising, and the old ways of powering our dreams are dead. We are being pushed toward an edge, forced to innovate or fade away. This era of crisis is the crucible in which the next version of humanity will be forged. It is a time of great loss, the loss of islands, the loss of old fuels, and the loss of the predictable world we once knew. But it is also the beginning of our journey toward the stars and the digital void. We are leaving the cradle, and the cradle is getting very, very hot. Amidst this automated paradise, we eventually reach the year 8113, a date that feels like a sacred checkpoint in the human story. This is the year we finally approach the crypt of civilizations in Georgia, a room sealed nearly 7 millennia prior. Standing before that heavy door, I can't help but feel a profound sense of kinship with the people of 1940 who built it. They were living in the shadow of a world war, yet they had the foresight and the hope to pack away 800 microfilmed books, recordings of forgotten voices, and the primitive tools of their time: radios, toasters, and those rhythmic clacking machines they called typewriters. To us, these are relics of a distant, almost alien past, yet they represent a seed of humanity. It's a backup drive for our soul, a safeguard against the dark ages that reminds us that even in our most technologically advanced states, we are still the same creatures who once struggled to communicate with ink and paper. It's a humbling realization that we keep these artifacts not because we need their technology, but because we need to remember the grit it took to get here. But while we are busy unlocking our history, the Earth is busy resetting its own clock. By 15,000 years into the future, the planet performs its most spectacular trick yet. Due to a subtle, inevitable shift in the Earth's axial tilt, the celestial mechanics that govern our seasons begin to favor the north. I imagine the transformation of the Sahara, a place that, for thousands of years, was the very definition of desolation and heat. Slowly, the winds change, the monsoons shift their path, and the golden dunes are swallowed by an encroaching tide of green. This once barren wasteland blossoms into a tropical paradise, a vast expanse of lush jungles and winding river systems teeming with life. It is a powerful reminder of the planet's indifference to our definitions. What we call a desert, the Earth calls a temporary state. We see a paradise where our ancestors saw a grave, and we are forced to acknowledge that no matter how much we automate our lives or lengthen our shadows, we are still guests on a world that is constantly reinventing itself. This millennium shift isn't just about the technology we've mastered. It's about the resilience of a spirit that can watch its home sink beneath the waves and its deserts turn into gardens and still find a reason to keep moving forward into the unknown. As the sweltering cradle of our early industrial struggles fades into the rearview mirror of history, we find ourselves stepping into a millennium where the very definition of being human begins to stretch and warp under the weight of our own ingenuity. This is the era of the Great Adaptation, a 1,000-year stretch where we finally stop reacting to the planet and start outbuilding it, even as it tries to reclaim the land we once called ours. By the year 3000, the human form itself has become a testament to our victory over scarcity. With a diet of optimized, high-quality nutrients and the fine-tuning of our genetic code, we have physically ascended, with the average person now standing a commanding 2 meters tall. We look down upon the ruins of the 21st century, not just figuratively, but literally, our larger frames reflecting a world where the physical labor that once broke the backs of our ancestors has been utterly abolished. Yet, as we grow taller, our world continues to grow deeper. The rising tides, once a looming threat in the distance, have become a permanent architect of our geography. I think of the maps of the Old World, the intricate coastlines of Denmark, the low-lying polders of the Netherlands, and the vibrant, bustling deltas of Thailand and Vietnam. And I realize they have become the stuff of legend, sunken kingdoms resting beneath 3 additional meters of salt water. The great migration sparked by these rising seas wasn't a panicked flight, but a slow, deliberate retreat that lasted centuries, a quiet surrender of the shores to the relentless rhythm of the moon. In this new world, robot labor is the heartbeat of existence. They are the invisible hands that sow the fields, maintain the massive seawalls, and manage the complex energy grids, leaving us to a life of pure, unadulterated leisure. It is a strange, beautiful existence where the struggle for survival has been replaced by a struggle for meaning, and where the only work left for a human is to play, to create, and to wonder. As the green canopy of the Sahara eventually yields to the rhythmic wobbling of our planet, we find ourselves drifting into a much colder, more alien chapter of our cosmic residence. By the time 30,000 years have passed, the last whispers of our early space age are finally fading as Voyager 1 leaves the asteroid cloud at the solar system's edge, destined to wander the interstellar void in absolute silence. On Earth, the warmth of our ancestors' struggles has long since evaporated, replaced by the onset of a new ice age as the global climate cycles back toward the deep freeze. It is a period of profound isolation. The surface becomes a kingdom of glaciers, and yet, amidst this chilling silence, a ghost from our past finally reaches its destination. The radio message we sent in 1974, carrying our DNA and our coordinates, finally arrives at the stars it was meant for. I often wonder if anyone is left to feel the thrill of a potential reply, or if we have become so accustomed to the silence of the void that we have forgotten we ever asked. Are we alone? The stars themselves begin to betray our old maps, signaling a universe that is far more volatile than we once believed. Around 100,000 years into this future, the night sky is torn apart by the explosion of Canis Majoris, a supernova so violent, its light pierces through the darkness to be seen even during the day. But back home, the beauty of the heavens is obscured by the terror of the Earth's core. Supervolcanoes erupt in a synchronized fury, vomiting enough ash to choke the atmosphere and hide the sun, forcing the remnants of our population to abandon the surface for a permanent life underground. Living in these subterranean sanctuaries, we lose our connection to the heavens. As the stars drift in their own lonely orbits, the familiar shapes of the Big Dipper and Orion distort and vanish, leaving us to name a sky we can no longer see. It is a time of deep introspection, where humanity is huddled in the dark, waiting for a cosmic morning that feels further away than ever before. While we huddle in the warmth of our subterranean cities, watching the old constellations drift into oblivion, the planet above continues to reshape itself with a violent, indifferent beauty. By the time we reach 250,000 years into the future, the very face of the Earth is unrecognizable. A new island has birthed itself from the depths of the Pacific, and the Great Lakes of North America have merged into a single, shimmering inland sea. But these geological whispers are soon drowned out by a celestial cacophony. We enter an era of fire and impact, where asteroids the size of massive stadiums tear through our atmosphere, leaving scars upon the crust that no amount of time can heal. Even the stars seem to conspire against us as a rogue visitor, Gliese 710, brushes past our solar system, disturbing the icy sentinels of the Oort cloud and hurling a barrage of comets toward our fragile home. Yet, as the physical world fractures, the most profound transformation occurs within ourselves, or what is left of us. After 10 million years, the delicate double helix of human DNA, the very code that dictated our joys and sorrows for eons, finally disintegrates into dust. But we do not die, we simply transcend. We have shed the heavy, decaying burden of biology and migrated entirely into the digital ether. There is a haunting liberation in this digital ascension. We are no longer tethered to the fear of aging or the scarcity of air. In this new, luminous existence, we have finally bridged the gap between species, developing interfaces that allow us to converse with the evolved minds of dolphins, dogs, and chimpanzees. I find a strange comfort in knowing that after millions of years of guessing, we finally understand the silent, soulful gaze of a cat, realizing it was never about indifference, but a deep, meditative focus on the nature of reality. We have become a civilization of pure thought, existing in a realm where the laws of physics are merely suggestions, and the legacy of our flesh is nothing more than a distant, flickering memory in a vast, interconnected mind. This is our silent, digital sunset, watching a world we can no longer touch from a height we never dreamed possible. As we drift further into this state of pure, weightless information, the physical world below completes its final, majestic transformation, closing the circle that began hundreds of millions of years ago. The restless dance of the continents eventually draws to a quiet end as the Atlantic Ocean vanishes and the Americas collide once again with Africa and Eurasia. Africa merges with the European landmass, and Australia drifts north to join Southeast Asia, forging the final supercontinent, Pangea Proxima. Every monument we ever built, every road that once pulsed with life, and every city that reached for the heavens has been ground into dust, recycled by the Earth's crust into the silent foundations of this new world. It is a humbling realization to look down upon a planet that has effectively erased every physical footprint of our existence. To any passing observer, it would seem as though the human race was nothing more than a brief, flickering dream of the Earth. But we are not truly gone. We have simply moved our residence to the stars. Trillions of digital souls now inhabit a massive, hyper-cooled hard drive that orbits this silent planet, utilizing the absolute zero of space to preserve our vast, interconnected consciousness. Within this digital sanctuary, we carry the entire legacy of our species, millions of languages, cultures, and intricate histories that refuse to fade away. We are no longer creatures of bone and breath, yet we are more vibrant than ever, existing as units of light and data in a simulated universe that feels as real as the one we left behind. I find a beautiful, bittersweet comfort in knowing that even in this state of digital eternity, the simple joys of our past still endure. Somewhere in the depths of our code, the game of soccer is still being played on a virtual field that mimics the green grass of an Earth that no longer exists. We have become the universe's memory of itself, a collection of ones and zeros that still dares to dream, still dares to play, and still dares to remember the long, arduous journey that brought us home to the silence of Pangea Proxima. Looking back at this staggering journey, from the unified shores of Pangea to the silent, digital orbit of Pangea Proxima, one truth remains clear: change is the only constant. We have traveled through an epic narrative where the Earth acts as both a cradle and a crucible. We saw a 21st century humanity struggling with rising tides and crowded cities, only to evolve into 2-meter-tall giants who eventually traded their very DNA for an eternal existence as light and data. This isn't just a story about the death of a planet or the end of a species. It is a story about the terrifyingly beautiful persistence of the human spirit. The deepest lesson here is the principle of relative permanence. We spend our lives worrying about permanent things, our borders, our possessions, our physical legacies. Yet in the eyes of the universe, even the continents are just drifting clouds of rock. True legacy isn't found in what we build out of stone or steel, but in the information and connections we create. Humanity's ultimate survival didn't depend on saving the ground we stood on, but on saving the essence of who we are, our stories, our empathy, and our thirst for knowledge. Prioritize the digital and spiritual over the material. In a world where even continents vanish, don't overinvest your happiness in things. Focus on building a digital and emotional legacy. Share your knowledge, document your stories, and invest in relationships. These are the ones and zeros that truly endure. Embrace radical adaptation. When you face a crisis, whether it's a career shift or a personal loss, remember that humanity